Round 3 begins in Beijing. After the first two rounds, where the Steinman team dominated, getting 2 wins out of 2 to start the season, and having a near miss against Wexler in Yokohama, the Steinman team were looking to press on with their advantage at the start of the season and try and get an unassailable lead, akin to seasons of the past. The several teams brought some updates, including the Lucky Strike Cosworth team, to make their cars a little bit easier to handle, especially with the tight and twisty corners. The Asia Road Racing team also did the same, bringing some new engine developments and a new gearbox as well for them to try out. The Catorsi team also brought some new updates in the form of a returning driver in Prachapatia, back from his severe burns that he suffered in the off season during preseason testing. Aurel Mazzario will now take over the second car for Kofi Koro, who finally gets to rest his injured neck and finally allow it to heal. Mazzario will take over that car instead. Qualifying was wet and wild, though, which led to some very interesting results. Dieter Wexler and Nina Holt on the front row, and all Panthers' second row were no surprise, but veteran third row of Anna Olivier and Javier Vasquez was, followed by Iker Vidal in the Lucky Strike car, 7th on the grid. Lucky for some. Car 7 was 10th, Neil Osaria behind the flying Rick DeGraff. Blanca Ribeiro on row 6, with Cassidy and Moreno row 7. Prachapatia, back from his injury, was 15th, a very credible effort. Jenny North 17th, a disappointing result. Wolfgang Schmidt 19th, another poor result for Schmidt. Harry Chapman 21st due to wet qualifying, alongside Aki Lippinen on the 11th row of the grid. A truly bad result for them, with Flores on the back row, showing her lack of experience in the wet compared to the flying Rick DeGraff, who just simply was amazing in qualifying. The race, though, would be very interesting, as tire wear was a bit of a mystery, as quite a bit of practice was rained out, with only one session being mostly dry. So it would be interesting for the teams to see how the new tires and these new cars fared on this track. With passing potentially difficult, the two-stop strategy was looking more likely than the three-stop that some teams have tried in previous races so far this season. The 5 lights came on to start the race. Then the lights went out for the Bejing Grand Prix of 2016. With Holtz getting a flyer of a start into turn 1, with Sharp almost getting Wexler. Meanwhile, at the back, there was trouble. Sirikov spun off the road, Sarian spun off the road. There was contact between Chapman and what eventually turned out to be Wolfgang Schmidt, and Atia was accused of being at blame until it was discovered Mezawar was the one who had damage from contact with Jenny North. So several cars were in trouble at the end of the first sector. Meanwhile, Lucia Flores being cited by the cited for the stewards for jumping the start and getting a drive-through penalty as Wolfgang Schmidt crashed out. The damage to his front wing and suspension too much to continue. Chapman also did not get away unscathed as a virtual safety car was deployed for Wolfgang Schmidt's wrecked car. Chapman had damage and was and had a drive-through for causing a collision, and several others were also in trouble. Mezawar ended up pitting at the end of lap 1. Jenny North pitted at the end of lap 1, and several other people were out of position. Wexler was in the lead, having jumped north on the restart of the virtual safety car. Vasquez was up into 3rd, Surkov up to 4th. Sharp was down to 16th, having made a mistake. Flores and Chapman were at the back, and North had a 5-second penalty for her involvement in the lap 1 shenanigans. Sarian was also near the back, dropping all the way down to 19th after his spin on the opening lap as well. This left the field quite mixed up, with Iker Vidal 6th, Rick DeGraff 7th, Moreno 9th, Cassidy and Hammer in the two Asia roads 10th and 11th, with Lundqvist 12th and Blanc up to 13th. A truly surprising start. which got more surprising as Javier Vasquez used his knowledge of the circuit to pull a surprise on Nina Holtz and move up into a staggering second place as Harry Chapman and Lucia Flores served their drive-thrus for their shenanigans on lap 1. Lap four, and Vasquez's time in second place was up as Holtz immediately got ahead once more, and was soon under pressure from Surakov's Panther. However, Vasquez was not an easy man to pass when he doesn't want you to, and he made Surakov's life pretty difficult, even surprising people by having the speed on the straight to outdrag the Panther into turn 1 and not be overtaken. But Surakov's car was much faster and wouldn't last much longer, and Vasquez was surely in trouble. Further back, there was more things going on in the midfield as Siri Lundqvist pulled a move on Moreno into turn 1 to move up into 9th place as Hamrin and Cassidy tried and failed to hold off a charging Samuel Blanc, who was looking to try and score his points. Vidal, meanwhile, was Vidal up ahead was also struggling at the end as the tires began to fall off. Vidal struck the Cosworth cars not doing as well on their tire wear, as Siri Lundqvist was proving as she began to put the pressure on the Spaniard in the Irish car. Further ahead, Vasquez was beginning to drop back as well as his tires began to fade as well as Oliveira moved up into 4th place. Further back, while that was going on, Sharp also made her presence known, sneaking back into the top 10 and getting involved in the Siri Vidal and Moraine, the Siri Vidal Blanc battle in the process. Eventually, the tires fell off completely for Vidal, and he became the first one to pit at the end of lap 13. Unlucky for some, maybe, but Vidal was looking to make the move work, as seeing the soft tires fall off and seeing the pace of teammate Woodford on the mediums still holding up. Vidal was the first one to pit of the top 10 runners, which definitely proved to be the right call, as Sarian had also pitted as well. Prachapatia pitted in front of Sarian, which gave Sarian some clear space. North also made an early pit. North had also proven the undercut valuable despite her incident on lap 1. Meanwhile, at the end of lap 16, the leaders also pitted, and in the pit lane, Steinman pulled off a brilliant stop to go side by side with Waxer in the pit lane, as they were 3 wide on the straight as Jeremy Woodford was trying to make up places. Holtz managed to get ahead of the Rossini driver as Woodford lost down that 3-wide battle to what it turned out was Sarian, not Hamrin, who ended up getting ahead. A crucial move for Sarian, as that put more cars between him and his rivals. Iker Vidal managed to actually undercut Nikolai Surikov unseen by the cameras, as Vidal moved up ahead of Surikov and Maria Gonzalez. A very surprising undercut for Vidal and the Lucky Strike team. Oliveira pitted, and the same thing happened. Vidal came out in front of the Windsor Toyota. Was the Lucky Strike team pulling off a masterstroke of a move? It seems so, as Vidal then pulled a move on Jenny North, who was on those tires that she had been on since the first lap of the race after pitting. Vidal pulled the move off and put a car between him and the charging Nikolai Surikov, while teammate Woodford was holding up Dieter Wexler in Wexler's attempt to try and catch Nina Holtz. Zoe Sharp pitted at the end of that lap, and again fell behind the Iker Vidal train, as it was being called by the commentators. Meanwhile, further ahead, unseen, Aki Lippinen was now leading the race, and continued to stay out for quite a while. While further back, as Aki led and the pack began to close, Vidal lost out to Surikov and Oliveira's much faster cars, but then was kindly let through by teammate Woodford, back up into P8. It was a smart move by the team to allow Vidal to try and use his tires and have Woodford as a blocker behind to block some cars behind, being Vasquez and Gonzalez and Sharp. However, that would not last as Vidal's gearbox decided to give up and get jammed in fourth. It was a gut-wrenching blow for the Lucky Strike team, who have not managed to find the luck that they needed. Vidal being stuck in fourth, immediately dived into the pit lane to get the problem sorted. He came into the pits, and after a lengthy 20-second stop and a change of tires to reset the gearbox control unit to get the car moving again, he came back out at the back of the field. A tough break for him. Teammate Woodford, annoyingly, teammate Woodford was in the next lap, which meant all Vidal's hard work and the fact that Woodford was holding up the cars behind was all for naught. As now both of the Lucky Strike cars dropped down the field, promoting Sharp back into the points as Lipinen still led. Lap 28, Lucia Flores retired from a very anonymous race as Aki Lipinen was still leading on lap 28 until finally Holtz and Wexler both managed to catch and pass him, having also passed Sarin off screen. Sarin was down to fourth as his soft tires began to fade, being one of the few who changed onto them for his second stop. A lockup for Lipinen and fading tires forced him to pit at the end of lap 30 at the halfway point. At the same time, as he crossed the pit lane entry line, Maria Gonzalez crashed out from 7th place. She simply made a mistake and she was out. And conveniently for Lipinen was in the pit lane and managed to get effectively a free pit stop in the process. And with the front three staying out, Lipinen, along with most of the field, took advantage of that, and everybody came charging into the pit lane to try and take advantage of this. With many of the field pitting, quite a lot of the teams double stacking. Mediums and soft tires were flying about in the pit garages, whereas teams were trying to figure out what tire to go onto in the scramble. As the leaders then came in at the end of lap 31, one lap later. But with Lipinen having pitted as well, the front three of Wexler, Sarin, and Holtz all effectively got a free stop and were able to come out in the lead and were able to come out in front. Until Lipinen dived into the pit lane again as the team had made a mistake on his tires and used a mixed set, forcing them to pit yet again, dropping Lipinen from 4th down to 7th. As the safety car came, but after a couple laps behind the safety car, Iker Vidal and the Lucky Strike team, with nothing to lose, decided to pit him for another set of mediums to make sure he could safely go to the end, hoping that tire fall off would help him out. And with some of the field on softs, it would be interesting to see what strategy prevailed between the medium and soft tires. As the race got back underway, with Oliveira in 3rd place on the hard tire, having not stopped into the safety car. The field came charging through the field. Took a little bit of time. It was easy through the first bit of the restart lap, trying to get their tires up to temperature. But Holtz, on the other hand, didn't feel like waiting and was immediately on the attack against Dieter Wexler, neatly trying to make a move in the tight and twisty infield section of the track. It took a few looks, but she managed to make the move stick in the third to last corner, diving up the inside using quite a bit of curb, but managing to sneak by the Rossini and just barely hang it around the outside line in the final corner to take the lead off of Dieter Wexler with just under 20 laps to go. Further back, Harry Chapman, having been trying to make a recovery since the opening bit of the race with the safety car, was now making moves, neatly overtaking both of the Asia roads and Pratchett Patia up into 13th place on lap 40. He was making a charge up the order as everybody was trying to get a grip on their tires, get them up to temperature, and try and figure out what strategy was everyone going to pull. it was safe to assume that the people in the hard tires, Blanc, Oliveira, and Ribeiro, were going to the end of the race. But everybody else was questionable on whether they could make it to the end or not. So everybody was wondering who could make it and who wouldn't, and who would stop and who wouldn't. Someone who was stopping was Jeremy Woodford, though, whose Cosworth engine exploded in a ball of black smoke. Truly disappointing day for the Lucky Strike team. No luck at all mechanically for them, with both cars having issues. As it turned out, Sharp would be the first one to make a call to decide on whether to pit or not, choosing to pit with 16 laps to go for a new set of soft tires, coming out near the back of the field, but had a chance to try and undercut her way to the lead, similar to what Vidal did earlier in the race. Teammate Sirikov was in 1 lap later to do the same thing, coming out on the soft tire behind his teammate and team leader. Another lap later, Dieter Wexler and Nina Holtz both pitted on the same lap. Wexler having gotten ahead as everybody was focused on Sharp and Sirikov's charge back up the order. And to everybody's surprise, Sharp managed to make the strategy work, having pitted at the right time with a 2-lap undercut and the fastest lap of the race. Sharp had undercut her way to what could be the effective lead if everybody else had to stop, except the hard tire runners. With all this going on, Sarin was now leading, Lipinen was second, Chapman was up to third, and Javier Vasquez was fourth, with the Flying Rick de Graaf fifth, until Chapman and Vasquez both pitted with 13 laps to go, and they both dropped down the order as well, seeing the new softs were way faster than their old ones. Esteban Ribeiro, who was looking on course to maybe steal a point if everything played out, spun in turn 1 and in the meantime and lost some ground. This shuffled the order again, promoting Blanc to 5th, Lundqvist 6th, and Castley 7th, and Iker Vidal after his miserable race up into 8th, which quickly became 9th as Sharp came charging through on her soft tires, passing him and Castley immediately. Then with 11 laps to go, Neil Asarian came into the pit lane, which promoted Rick de Graaf of all people to the lead, with now Olivier and Blanc second and third, with Lundqvist up to 4th. But Sharp was charging and was closing in fast. And de Graaf's 5 seconds of fame at the lead of the race was over as Olivier muscled her way through up into the lead now, coming to 10 to go. The strategies were quite all over the place, as nobody knew who was actually the race leader, as everybody was scrambling on different tire strategies and going at different speeds. Sharp appeared to be the leader as Rick de Graaf pitted with 8 to go. Samuel Blanc had lost ground as he made a mistake in the final corner and lost ground and was overtaken by Vidal. As Sharp and Wexler dueled for the lead, Sharp and Wexler dueled for the lead off screen until Wexler got ahead, as they both charged down Anne Olivier, who was leading the race, coming to 6 laps to go. It was quite entertaining, as Olivier on her hard tires was trying to defend with all she could for a podium position, as Sharp and Wexler dueled over what could be the win of the race. Sharp managed to sneak by as Wexler failed an overtake on Oliveira in the middle sector before Sharp managed to get by. Wexler managed to get by. Then Wexler managed to use Oliveira as a pick to manage to sneak ahead of Sharp once more, as Holtz now stared at the back of the Windsor, with Surikov right behind her. Chapman was back up into 6th place in all this, unseen by the cameras, as he managed to make his way back up through the field as well, as Holtz managed to pull an overtake in the same corner as earlier in the race and got by Oliviera, before Surikov did the same thing in the final corner, dropping Oliviera down to 5th place with 6 laps to go. Neil Asarian, on the other hand, was also making moves, having moved his way back up to 7th. As further back, the final points positions were being sorted out amongst Blanc, Vidal, Vasquez, Ribeiro, and several others as well. Blanc having snuck his way up into ninth past Vidal's fading medium tires. The gamble not having worked, as Vasquez also managed to get by Vidal, dropping Vidal out of the points into 11th. A tough break for Vidal as he had been trying very, very hard, and after a truly tumultuous day for the Lucky Strike team, they were going to end up with nothing for their result, despite all their efforts. Coming to the although with just over a lap to go, Holtz had finally managed to get up a run and was now right on the back of Wexler, coming to the final lap. With Sharp and Surikov right behind them as well in formation if the two leaders took each other out. It was the final lap. The final lap was truly going to be something. Was truly something to behold as Holtz began to stare down the Rossini and try and put the German veteran under pressure. Into turn one, there was nothing to be had. Holtz was too far back. As the Surikov attempted to move on Sharp off screen and didn't stick. Into the hairpin at the top of the circuit, Holtz tried to get close again and couldn't get there. As Surikov began to try and make a move on Sharp to try and steal a podium position. Into the third hairpin of the track, Holtz got even closer and still could not get there. She was running out of time as she tried in her favorite trick, but Wexler defended the inside and didn't let her through. Into the final corner, Holtz tried to set Wexler up for a crossover, but just couldn't get there. So Rossini told on the start-finish straight, and Dieter Wexler won the race by just over 0.2 of a second to Holtz, with Sharp fending off teammate Surikov for third. Chapman coming on fourth, sorry in fifth. Olivier losing out to Lipinen on the start-finish line in a photo finish, and Blanc managing to steal 10th ahead of De Graaf, who pipped Iker Vidal to the line by 0.43 of a second. It was quite an entertaining race, all things considered, with varying strategies, drama up and down the field, overtakes galore. It was a race that everybody could walk away from thinking that they did the best they could given the circumstances. With that all sorted, and everybody finally able to take a deep breath and calm down after a truly exciting race, everybody began to pack up from the final of the flyaway races, and got ready to head off to Tondela for the first European round of the season. Chapman and Wexler were now tied at the top of the standings after that result, and Rossini took the constructors' lead by 4 points over Steinman. But with the season still very young, it was all to play for in both standings going forward.